Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Happy Sunday to all of you. You remember about a year and a half back, we were talking about a lot of things that were going to come in the future. Well, we're in the future now, and a lot of those things that we talked about have already come to pass. But ladies and gentlemen, this is a path to what the powers that be really want to do. Not only with the US, but with the entire world. And the best thing that we can do to combat this is to know ahead of time what's coming. That's why I like to call some of these things that we talk about today leading indicators. This is a leading indicator of what's to come. So let's talk about it today so that we can prepare for the future. Now, at the end of this video, ladies and gentlemen, I have some really good news that I would like to share with you. And I want to thank every one of you that have been coming by and checking out the videos that I've put out since I've come back to YouTube a few days ago. So please give this video a like and go ahead and share with someone and leave a comment. Even if you just leave a little period mark on a comment, that really helps with the algorithm so that it can share with other people. Because I think that the information that I'm putting out on this video is very important, not only to help you prepare, but maybe to help some of those people that are not in the know to be informed enough to look into things for themselves. Here we have an article by SHTF that says 18 numbers which clearly show what direction things are going. And I've already looked through this article, and I have to say that I agree with pretty much every single point that they make. However, I'm going to show you some other stuff that I came across that I think you'll find very interesting. I'm not going to take an awful lot of time on each of these points. I'm not going to read everything verbatim, but what I always do on these types of videos is that I leave you the link on a pinned comment so that you can go revisit the article and take a look at it for yourself. So take a look at number one. The U.S. lost 32,000 jobs last month. That is the largest drop in 2.5 years. You remember back in the day, a year and a half ago or so, I was saying, not because I just thought it, but because of the way things were looking, leading indicators, that this year, 2025, we were going to start seeing job losses like we've never seen before. And I don't have to tell you, just get online, get on some kind of social media, be it YouTube Shorts, TikTok, whatever those other social media things are. I'm really not into any of those, but I see them from other people's perspectives of how many people are losing their jobs and not being able to find jobs, even though they may have degrees in this and that, and even though they may have the expertise required to do that job for various reasons. The economy, AI is a big one. The thing that's going on right now where they're laying off a lot of people in the federal government, and also people are willingly taking retirements from federal government jobs, early retirements that is. But a lot of people that are losing their jobs right now are not being able to replace those jobs with equal value jobs, meaning that they're going to have to take on 2 or 3 jobs if they want to maintain the standard of living that they already had. The number of long-term unemployed workers in the United States has risen to the highest level since the pandemic. Long-term workers, in my opinion, are those that have already gone through their unemployment benefits and now still don't have a job to go back to. Number 3, over 150,000 federal workers will permanently leave their jobs this week. And the thing about that is, this is the one that I was talking about, that they're taking early retirements, is that I don't think that 150,000 that are leaving, taking early retirements, they're not going to be replaced with anyone else. So the people that are getting out of college now that are hoping to be able to fill into those 150,000 jobs are not going to, because they're just not going to be available. Number 4, the number of jobs in Los Angeles County has fallen by 30% in just 2 years. I think California is like the 5th or the 6th biggest economy in the world if you just take California's economy. So this is a really big deal. Where are those people going to work? You know, I was thinking back to when I was a kid, so obviously a very long time ago, decades ago, right? Remember when we used to watch like the McDonald's commercials or fast food commercials, and there was someone behind the counter, you know, serving someone else or taking their order? Those jobs in those commercials always used to have like teenagers back there. Hello, may I take your order? It always used to be like a teenager. It always used to be like a manager back there that was a teenager or that was in their late teens or early 20s. But now when you take a look at commercials on TV, that have fast food workers, I would say that almost all of them have grown-ups as the servers standing behind the counter. And that's if there is a server to stand behind the counter to take your order and not a kiosk. Number 5, approximately 900 GM employees are facing indefinite layoffs. Why is this such a big deal? It's only 900 of them. Well, I like to call these kinds of layoffs town killers. Because if you have a small town that depends mainly on this factory being open and they fire half of the people that work there, it's pretty much going to kill the town. And now the fact of the matter, ladies and gentlemen, is that it doesn't really matter what we blame it on. It doesn't matter what you blame 2,000 jobs being eliminated on. The fact of the matter is that those 2,000 jobs, 900 jobs, 150,000 jobs, etc., they're gone. A 37-year-old tech worker who lost her job last November still hasn't found work, even though she has applied for hundreds of jobs. And that same story is out there in the thousands, I would say tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands. We have people that are overqualified for the jobs that they're applying for, and the jobs are either offering entry-level salaries or just ghosting them, meaning that once the applicant gets interviewed, they never hear from them again. Number 9, only 48% of adults under the age of 30 currently have a full-time job. Listen to that number. Only 48% of adults over the age of 30 in the United States of America currently have a job. In 1950, more than 50% of 30-year-olds in the United States owned a home and were married. Today, that figure has fallen to 13%. That, ladies and gentlemen, in my opinion, is a country killer. Not a community or town killer, but a country killer. Whereas here in the United States, I believe that the birth rate is now below 2. And for those of you that track population increases, etc., you know that in order for a country to be able to stay afloat as far as the people that live there to be the same, is the number of people that live there to be the same, it has to be at least 2 to 2.1. But we are under 2 right now. And the economy, the way that it is now, is going to get people to think, hey, maybe I don't want to have any kids. Maybe I just don't even want to get married. And even if you can afford to buy a house, about 44% of Americans struggle to make their housing payments each month. So even if you do own a house, you may end up having house remorse because you just can't afford to make that payment and have a decent standard of living, which is what we like to call house poor. 46% of Americans say that they worry about their debt every single day. Now that to me says that we do not have a stable economy. The stock market can do whatever it's doing. Remember that a stock market can crash one of 2 ways. It can either crash downward or it can crash upward, which is called a crack up boom. Now, we all know why the stock market would crash downward, but why would the stock market going up be called a crash? It's called a crack up boom. Reason for that, ladies and gentlemen, is because just like it takes more dollars to buy that olive oil, it's taking more dollars to buy that stock. Why? Because there's more dollars in the economy in order to do so. Prices were slashed on 19.9% of home listings last month as the U.S. housing bubble starts to crash. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you take a look at a map of Florida and all of the houses that are available, Airbnbs, houses that people bought that they're house poor and they have to get rid of them because they can't afford them. They either lost their job, taxes went up, etc. I think it's a buyer's market in Florida right now. However, the economy is not really producing the buyers that are needed to buy these houses, even at a reduced rate of about 20%. And this is a story that we hear every single day. 49% of Americans say that the cost of living is the biggest challenge that they are facing because they can't afford to live the standard of living that they used to live on the same salaries or even higher salaries that they're receiving today. This is a crisis, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to continue to happen, is going to continue to deepen. Yes, there's talk about bringing manufacturing back to the U.S., which is great. I would love to see manufacturing come back to the US just like it used to be in the 50s and 60s and even 70s. However, that takes a lot of time. What will happen between now and then if we actually do end up bringing most of our manufacturing back home? Well, people are going to continue to lose homes. People are going to continue to have a lower standard of living. And I believe that there's going to be a huge crisis between now and probably the next 6 or 7 years that will probably alter the way that we see reality as we see it today. And probably, more than likely, not in a better way, but in a worse way. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit. 67% of U.S. workers are now living paycheck to paycheck. Every single person here knows at least 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people that have a car they can't afford, have a house they can't afford, and are just hoping to the good Lord that they can keep your job. I'll tell you what, if you have a good job right now, don't take it for granted. Be the best worker that you can possibly be, and always be taking a look at what side gigs maybe you can start in order to make a little bit of extra money and get ahead. The price of ground beef has risen more than 12% over the last year alone. And that was evident by the last video that I put out where I was at Costco. The price of beef since I'd done a video last had gone up from $4.99, or ground beef, excuse me, from $4.99 to, I believe it was $5.49 or $5.59. And that's roughly 10 to 12%. And second to last, the number of cows in the United States has fallen to the lowest level since 1951. Well, why does that matter? The price of beef is already high. Well, this is going to affect the price of all meats, not just beef. Because those people that can't afford the beef at today's prices, they're going to go ahead and start buying pork or chicken or whatever else they can that will provide them that protein that they desire at a cheaper cost. Remember, if you haven't taken a look at that video that I did where I visited Costco and went through a lot of the prices that they had there, go take a look at it. I'll leave it in the upper right hand corner, one of these corners right here. So you can go ahead and click on it after this video. But remember when I was there, we were talking about pork. And I was saying, hey, pork is not that bad. I think pork butt was selling for like $2.49 a pound, or pork loin was like $2.49, $2.59 a pound, something like that. Well, remember when we used to be able to get pork for like 99 cents a pound? And every once in a while you got it on sale for even less? Now the regular price, even myself, I even catch myself saying, hey, this is not a bad price, $2.49. Well, when just a few years ago, it was less than $1. So the cost of all meats are only going to continue to go up. And on that last video that I put out, I know I keep referencing to it, but it has a lot to do with this. There are some things that have come down in price a little bit. In my opinion, I think that a lot of that has to do with government subsidies, which means that you're still paying for those prices. It's just that the government took some of your money and gave it to companies, farms, whatever it may be, so that those prices could come down at the store. It's just an illusion. You're still paying for it through inflation. The cost of living the American dream for a lifetime has now reached $5 million. What does that mean for a lifetime? Well, the way that I see it is that the average person has a working life of about 40 years or so. So let's take 40 years and divide it into 5 million, which means that today, in order for you to achieve just a decent standard of living, it's going to cost you a 6-figure salary every year. So if you're making less than 6 figures, you're falling behind every single year. Find a side hustle, ladies and gentlemen, at least so that you can have a cushion so that if something happens, you can go ahead and rely on that while you look for something different. And of course, you have to continue to prepare. Those things that you find on sale now and then. Remember, I said a while back that today's sale prices are last year's regular prices, meaning that today's regular prices are a lot more than last year's regular prices. And that's going to continue to happen. You know, a lot of people don't like me to talk about gold and silver and stuff. So let's talk about the stock market, right? Just like gold and silver is going up, the stock market is going up. And the higher that the stock market goes, but specifically the higher that gold and silver goes, right? That's what you really want to watch. Gold and silver are like a barometer to the cost of living. The higher that the price of gold and silver goes, the higher that the price for you to live is going to go in the future. So if you think that the prices for you to live now are high, take a look at what gold and silver are doing. That is a leading indicator that the prices of everyday life is just going to continue to go up. And that's going to keep happening for years to come until something drastic happens where we have no choice but to switch over to a new system. And one of the reasons why, ladies and gentlemen, the price of things are going up is because countries are starting to lose faith, or they've started to lose faith a long time ago on the dollar. So the dollar is losing a lot of value. And if you were to look at the chart of the dollar, of the DXY, the Dixie, you would say, AAP, the dollar's not that bad. It's at like, the last I checked, I think it was like 98% or 98.5. That's pretty darn high. But ladies and gentlemen, that is against what? The dollar is at 98% against what? It's against other currencies, as you can see here, that are devaluing their fiat currency at a faster rate than the dollar. If you want to gauge how strong the dollar really is, go ahead and gauge it against real money. Take a look at how much the dollar has lost over the last 110, 112 years or so against gold. Back 112 years or so, it took $20.67 to buy 1 ounce of gold. Today, it takes more than $4,000. What changed? Gold didn't change. It's still AU, right? It's still the element AU. So it hasn't changed. The weight hasn't changed. Nothing of it has changed. It's indestructible, really. But what has changed is that the purchasing power of that dollar has dropped by, I don't even want to do the math. It's incredible. I think it's close to 100%, 99.9 something percent. As the United States approaches a national debt milestone of $38 trillion. Amazing. Investors are abandoning the US dollar. Instead, people are turning to gold and Bitcoin, which have seen unprecedented highs lately. The U.S. national debt is currently increasing by an alarming $6 billion a day. That is incredible. The dollar's value erodes. Many look for safe havens to protect their wealth. The national debt has grown by $2.09 trillion over just the last year, ladies and gentlemen. I think it took like 200 years or so since the birth of this country for us to reach a national debt of like $1 trillion. And now our national debt is growing at $2 trillion plus per year, with an average daily increase of $5.72 billion. This is making inflation unbearable for so many middle-class Americans as it wipes out wealth en masse. You know, for you that have been watching me for a while, you already know I don't really care about the sides. I care about America. I care about our people. All right. And I've always said that both wings, the left and the right, they're controlled by one head. Yes, one cycle, this wing may be doing a little bit better for the country. This cycle, this wing may be doing a little bit worse, etc., etc. Some wings are worse for our liberties. Some wings are worse for our pocketbook, etc., right? But in the end, if you look at your entire lifetime, have things really gotten better since the day you were born to today as far as the standard of living of the average American? And while we are all worried about being able to put food on our tables, about being able to keep a house or a roof over the heads of our family, this is, in my opinion, what the powers that be are thinking. And not only on a countrywide level, but on a worldwide level. While Americans sleep, there is concern that some continue to implement the beast system. And what is that, the beast system? It's a system of full control. Take a look at what's happening in China. They have full control of what the people can and can't do over there. I always said that they're going to find a way to make us have to get some kind of a digital ID that we have to use in order to even use the internet, in order to do banking. All they have to do is create something that the American people can get behind and say, oh no, we have to go to this because it's for our safety. And when they do, we are going to be captured within an electronic or a digital jail. And I know that this may sound hyperbolic, ladies and gentlemen, but just look around. Take a look at China. I think it was the UK, Great Britain, not too long ago.
You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID. It's as simple as that. Today, I am announcing this government will make a new free of charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work.
We will have a digital ID implemented, and without it, you will not be able to work. Those are the words that came out of that guy's mouth. But how are we going to get there? In my opinion, people are going to be begging for it because things are going to get so bad that they're going to say, okay, we'll do whatever it is that you want us to do. Remember how it is that the TSA came to be? I have no idea what it will be. I don't know where. I don't know when. But in order for them to implement the things that they want to implement upon us, they have to create the circumstances by which the people ask for it. It's just going to be a huge fear campaign by the powers that be. So stay prepared, ladies and gentlemen, because if you don't, you're going to be one of those people standing in line, giving up every little vestige of your liberty in order to just stay alive. Now, when I read this, the first thought that came to me was, what about medication? Check this out. What will happen after Trump's new 100% tariff on China goes into effect? Catastrophic results for the U.S. financial infrastructure. But not only that, you think that China is not going to retaliate? Who makes a lot, if not most, of our prescription medication? I believe that it comes from China, especially the ingredients that we need in order to make the ones that we do make here. And then a lot also come from India. However, the medication that we get from India, their ingredients, the ingredients that India uses to make the medication that we get from them, comes from China mostly as well. So ladies and gentlemen, go ahead and prepare yourselves. Okay, this is not a sponsored video or anything like that, but I believe in Jase Medical because I think that they are a great company that provides a service that otherwise we really wouldn't have access to. If you're on medication A, B, or C in their prescription medications, they may be able to provide you with enough to last you 12 months. That way you can continue to get your prescriptions on a monthly or bi-monthly basis, however long it takes you to go through a prescription. And then you can rotate through those. That way you always have like a 1 year and 2 or 3 month supply that you're rotating through. Right? They provide that service. They also provide antibiotics for emergencies. I've already had 1 or 2 people in the past contact me and said, I'm so glad that I got these antibiotics because I needed them for my son and they were not available anywhere. So get your stuff, put it away, and remember that slow and steady does win the race. It's still true. It's just that things are getting more expensive. So the more expensive that things get, the more work that you're going to have to put forth in order to get that stuff. I'm going to go ahead and leave a link for Jase Medical, and I really do think that they're a very good company. I'm going to go ahead and leave it in the description of the video as well, and I'm going to leave a coupon code there, and I think it's for like $10 off or something like that, but it's well worth it even if you don't use the coupon. Now I want to talk to you all about some really good news that I have. So I got my lab results back for my glucose, my fasting glucose level, and also my A1C. And it actually came back really good. I'm very happy about that, so I wanted to share that with you. So right here what you're looking at is, and if you watched the first video that I put out when I first came back on YouTube here about a week ago or so now, you'll see that the date on this is September 16 of 2024. And ladies and gentlemen, at that time, I had pretty much given up. I pretty much didn't care anymore. I didn't care what I ate. I didn't care what I did. I didn't care, period. But we won't get into that. But you'll see that my fasting glucose was 229, which is super, super high. Okay? And then you can see here, I think they say the range is no more than 126. So 125 and below it's a pretty decent fasting glucose level. And you can see that my A1C, my hemoglobin A1C at that time was almost twice as much as what it's supposed to be. It was 9.6. Then when I went to the doctor this last July, or I went to the doctor prior to that, right, and got a checkup and everything, and I had to get off medication that I forget, metformin. I had to get off that metformin medication because it was tearing me up. I had already started to make some progress. My fasting glucose was like 157, which is not great, but it's a lot better than 229. And here it was 7.1. And it's been just shy of 3 months since I went and got my lab again. I went back there on the 9th of October, just a few days ago, and it was 134, which is still not perfect, but look, it's 6.3. So the rate or the range for your A1C is lower than 5.6, above 4.0 as it shows right here, but lower than 5.6 or 5.6 or lower. So slow and steady wins the race. So I just wanted to show you this because I know a lot of you were asking me how my health was, and it's getting better little by little. Don't really want to rush it or anything like that. Because the things that I'm doing right now are actually working, just at a slow pace. I hope that you all have a great rest of your weekend and a good week ahead, ladies and gentlemen. God bless every one of you. I love you all. God bless America. I'm Alaska Prepper. I'm out.